Net Wealth Investments Limited is licensed to provide general advice. Our podcasts are not tailored to any one financial situation and may contain views of our presenters which may not align with Net Wealth's. More information about Net Wealth can be found on our website, including our financial services guide and disclosure documents. Please seek professional advice before acting.
Hi, I'm Matt Heiner, Joint Managing Director of Net Wealth, and welcome to Between Meetings. In this podcast series, I chat to industry professionals and thought leaders on what made their careers successful and the opportunities and challenges they see on a wide range of topics as they relate to the delivery of advice and financial services. I hope you enjoy their unique insights. In this episode, I speak to Michelle Baltazar, Executive Director of Media for Rainmaker Group, which includes titles such as Financial Standard and Money Magazine. During the podcast, we discuss some of the major industry trends, what the media and events industry might look like in a post-COVID world, and how wealth management professionals can better leverage their story to get the attention of journalists. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you, Matt. Good to be here.
I'm really pleased that you've joined today. We've known each other for a very long time, and I think many of our listeners today would probably have seen your smiling face in one of the many mastheads that you are edited for, being Money Magazine and, of course, Financial Standard. But before we get stuck into a few of the other chunky topics, I'd love just to get a bit of history on sort of how you got into the industry.
Thank you for asking. It was really by accident. I studied science in school. My heritage is Filipino, so Asian parents thought I should be a doctor, neurosurgeon, accountant, lawyer. Other careers don't count. But I've always loved writing. I started writing when I was like 5 years old, just making up stories and distributing them at our street. I was actually like selling pieces of paper to our neighbors to say, hey, you have to buy this newspaper, which I thought was interesting. But when I finished my degree at Sydney Uni, I took on a summer job working at Business Review Weekly, which is a magazine now defunct, but at the time, 2 decades ago, it was the most read business magazine. I'm sure everyone kind of was excited about what's going to be the cover story on a Tuesday. Golden days of, I think, finance journalism. We had Ross Greenwood, Norelle Hooper, Adele Ferguson in the one office space. I thought that was just going to last for 3 months, but ended up taking on the job full time, from researcher to journalist. Worked in London for 3 years as a finance journalist under Ross Greenwood. When he moved to London, I said, hey, can you give me a job? And he said, Michelle, if you can get a flight here, I'll give you a job. So I arrived there on a Thursday and I was in the office by Monday. And that was the winter of 1998 or something like that. And then I came back for family reasons and took a job here at Rainmaker. And 15 years later, I'm still here. From editor to now publisher of 4 mastheads, namely Financial Standard, Money Magazine, and as of early this year, Financial Standard Sustainability, which is about sustainable investing, and Industry Moves, which is about people moves in the industry.
What a fascinating career path. And just going back to, I guess, those early days, back when journalism would have been a very different environment and atmosphere, I think, to what it is today. The internet was just starting to sort of make its mark on the world. What was it like back then? Was it like you see in the movies?
Yes, a little bit like that, actually. I do remember one of the biggest stories then was around Two Bags Tyler, which is about Telstra and Solution 6. I don't know if you remember that, but basically there were 12 cubicles in the one space, and you have this incredibly talented investigative journalists. Some of them would work on a story for 6 months. So you can only imagine how great it would have been to read that, the caliber of the news writing. And yes, it's like in the movies where they're just all fired up and people kind of peeking out of their cubicles talking about the stories. This was before the internet, so I remember the fax. So you know how there was still the fax that it almost rolls because it was too hot, and the printer with like the little stubs on both sides. Very exciting time. I would say that it was great to be part of that environment at the time. I saw Bob Gottliebson maybe once or twice a week. He was based in Melbourne and I was working in Sydney. But my job at BRW then was the Rich 200. So I was researching the 200 wealthiest families in Australia. And just having that kind of foundation to my career was incredibly helpful. And truly, the rules that I learned then, I still apply today, from simple things like spelling people's names right and checking facts and numbers.
It's little things that make a difference, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, a couple of those names that you mentioned, Adele Ferguson, Ross Greenwood, Paul Clitheroe, no doubt was around back then.
Mm-hmm.
It was an all-star cast.
It's like an ensemble. Ali Cromie, who broke the story about the Olympics. Yeah.
Did they mentor you back then, or was it every man and woman from themselves?
I definitely gravitated towards two journalists at the time, Ali Cromie, who was a full-time investigative journalist, and Narelle Hooper, who was the Rich 200 editor. Many of your listeners would know Narelle as the former Boss editor, and she's now working at company director. And they were just incredibly helpful. But there was certainly a camaraderie there. But I didn't start out as a journalist, you see. I was a researcher, so I was kind of one step removed. But I still remember to this day having pizza with Adele and a couple of other journalists because they were working on deadline. So, that kind of environment.
That would have been amazing. And coming back to Australia and starting with Rainmaker, what was your role then? You were a journalist. Were you also working on other parts of the business, so events and data, or was it always around the mastheads?
So at the time, I think this was back in 2005, I started at Rainmaker as a senior journalist. And this was, I believe, the start of all the other publications kind of just being introduced to the market. So Money Management was the incumbent title at the time. I still remember that this was like the early days of websites and newsletters. So a lot of kind of fumbling around, well, how do we do a newsletter? How would it look like? But I brought my experience from working in London at an investment magazine, at Shares magazine. But what was it like? I mean, the people that I've interviewed, they were very generous. I was new to the industry, incredibly helpful. But it was a different world. I think today we have access to so much information on the net that it's probably loses the kind of, traditional calling people on the phone and doing interviews like that.
So it sounds like you sort of fell into finance journalism. I'm not sure if that's what you set out to do when you started your career. I know that you're an avid follower of fashion. Did you ever think about moving into other industries or doing something different?
No, I did contemplate working for a women's magazine. I do run a women's blog for the Filipino Australian community. So I do that. But I just can't imagine starting my day talking about shampoos and which shampoo or conditioner would work well for your hair. But so the short answer is no. I do love finance journalism. I feel at home. I feel like I'm in my element. And I can't imagine, doing healthcare writing or beauty writing. But fashion, I'm very passionate about arts and culture. So Indigenous fashion is one of my pet projects, and I kind of combine that with some charity work once a year.
Excellent. And if we fast forward to today,
yes,
as a Financial Standard has been, I guess, your baby for many years now, and recently Rainmaker purchased the Money magazine from Bauer Media. How did that come about? Because ultimately they're very different audiences, even though both are writing about finance.
Yes. So the journey kind of started a few years ago. So it wasn't something that we thought about this year and the deal just came through. It was really looking at where Rainmaker sits in the world of wealth management. And our mission has always been to provide leading financial content for both the industry and for consumers. But we just didn't know what title would fit or whether it should be organic. Chris, our group managing director, said, I can't think of any other title that we would consider except for money. And the conversation started from there. And I think it took a couple of years or so before it did happen. But behind the scenes, we probably had to work for a year to look at integration, what it means for the business, what the week to week would look like. But we thought it made sense because even if we are talking to the trade industry, i.e. financial planners and fund managers, we've always looked at ourselves as the publication for the wealth management professional. And you don't have to be in the industry. You just have to be someone who wants to be, to truly understand what wealth management looks like.
And given that the audience for Money Magazine has traditionally been, tell me if I'm wrong here, non-advised or DIY investors, did you find that putting on that different cap was difficult initially?
Short answer is yes. I think there is definitely this sense of DIY advice is something they can do. They're, successful professionals in their own space, architects, engineers, people that are quite comfortable around numbers. But it was more looking at, well, why is that? So I asked myself, why is it that you have this cohort of people who have a combined household of $150,000 in annual income? Most of them have fully paid their homes. They have, a few $1,000,000 in their investment portfolio. Why is it that they're not seeking financial advice? So one, our language was very different in the way we write the articles. And two, we're only really in year 2 of embracing money. So it's still like kind of a learning curve. What does that mean?
How has the integration gone? Because you've got two very successful businesses coming together with very different cultures and outlooks. Has it been challenging? Has it been easy? What advice would you have for people that are putting any businesses together?
Yes, good question. So, knock on wood, it's been fantastic so far. The integration has worked well. In fact, I'm looking across to the money team, which is next to the financial standard team. A lot of the financial standard journalists contribute to money, and the money team would sometimes provide news story leads to the financial standard journalists. And that really all comes from just making sure we communicate why we have both teams and what is it that Rainmaker as a publishing and research house want to achieve. And essentially, we just really want to provide leading content in finance. And it doesn't matter if you're a super fund, a financial advisor, or the end investor. But we did, sorry to interrupt you there, but we did hire a project manager to just do it step by step and making sure everything's organized. Things that you don't really think about, like the number of cabinets in the office, IT needs, training, do we have enough space, style guide, how do we write money versus how do we write for financial standard. But on the whole, I think it was incredibly important that we had a project manager just focused on integrating money into the business.
And how long did that all occur before COVID hit and everyone had to move to remote working? Did you have time to get to know each other?
Yes, it does feel like March is like a big month for us. So we purchased Money Magazine in March last year. And then a year later, here we are with COVID. We do have a small money team, just the managing editor, editor at large, journalist, and our online content producer, plus 2 in production. The rest are contributors, including, of course, Paul Clitheroe, Pam Walkley, Vita Palestrant, all these finance journalists who have been in the industry for decades. So it was easy because of just the size of the team. But it was hair raising, and I'm just really impressed with our IT team that they were just able to move all of us in literally in the space of 2 weeks. So, yeah.
I think of all of the industries that have been severely impacted by COVID, and media would certainly be up there. Financial Standard and Rainmaker have always had a big events program, as well as sort of a large print circular. How has that changed over the last few months? What lessons have you learned? But more importantly, how have you pivoted the business across all of your different mastheads?
Yes. Uh, Again, a good question. Just like in wealth management, diversity is incredibly important. I'm very lucky that I'm part of a business that has four legs: data, research, media, and events. So the events business was definitely hard hit. We just had to cancel everything and then take a step back and think, all right, so which ones do we proceed with this year and how are we going to do it? And so how did we pivot? Again, we have a marketing and events team, and we're fortunate that they just kind of adjusted to it and thought, these are the things that we can do as video, online. But definitely it was still hard because of the logistics of trying to organize everything. For example, if you wanted to interview someone from Melbourne, and we can't do that. At the moment, it is the events business that took a hit because of COVID. But slowly we're kind of trying to figure out, well, we've already finalized our 2021 events calendar, and we've proceeded with all our events bar the Max Awards, which we had to do online, and all the forums had to be done online, including the managed accounts forum that went out just yesterday.
And has the feedback from those that have been attending the virtual events been good?
Well, we've received, that if you get one negative feedback, that means there's like 100 people out there who thinks the same way. Fortunately, we've only received positive feedback. And it's not because we have bells and whistles in all our kind of video products or all our video on demand series, but people in general understand that this is all new to us. So there's a little bit of kind of room to say, hey, as long as the audio is great, as long as we've got the video, as long as the content is great, we're good. So that's the story so far.
And what's your current thinking about post-COVID, when we have a vaccine and life goes back to some sort of normal? Will you do a blended agenda in the future and have some virtual, some physical events, or you haven't thought that far ahead?
No, not yet. We haven't really thought about it, only because I understand that technology already enables everyone to do videos and to connect with anyone they want to, either through social media or through MS meetings. For example, I didn't know that MS meetings existed before COVID. But what we're trying to focus on is, where can we provide value to our readers in a world where everyone can do video content, can do podcast, and basically reach out to you however way they want.
And speaking of that business model innovation, again, going back to the recent merger with Money Magazine, their business model is very different to, I guess, how you've operated within financial services traditionally. Do you want to just talk through the differences and where you see media going in the future, particularly in relation to sort of digital disruption?
Yes. So the first thing, I guess, would be the business model, where Money Magazine was part of a suite of other publications within Bauer Media. And that meant that they had the benefits of scale, because you have more than, let's say, 20 titles. And they also worked on what they called a cost per impression model, which is looking at traffic in a way that it was kind of foreign to me, in that I know with Financial Standard, they're not just impressions. I actually talked to Matt, for example, or I know I've interviewed Ian Silk. They are just not clicks. They are people who are influencing the industry. So one of the things that we've had to really look at is, do we adopt the advertising model that Money Magazine had previously, or do we assess it from how we understand the audience are really, in terms of how we think if we're talking about advertising, how would they view the money audience, but also how we've run Financial Standard, which in the last 5 years, we've now grown to more than 8 titles. So there's Financial Standard, and then we have the journals and the good guides. we decided we are going to change the business model. We've actually raised the price of some of the advertising assets, and we've introduced new assets. That was a big risk, but thankfully it's actually been very good. The advertisers have been very receptive, and knock on wood, our readers have actually gone up something like 20 to 25% since we've acquired the title.
And I think that's an interesting point. Are you suggesting that because you've been able to go deeper and more specific to an audience, so around sustainability, managed accounts, that you're able to charge more because the audience is more relevant?
I think I don't know whether that's the case. It's more that we have the experience of knowing who our audiences are in the finance world. Whereas at Bauer, money was the only finance title, arguably, compared to more lifestyle titles. It came down to knowing who our advertisers were and just assessing, well, what does that mean in terms of making sure that our business model is sustainable in the future. And the reason I say that is that this is not news to you, Matt, but a lot of newspapers are reporting losses, TV networks, magazines, and you think, why is that? Aren't they pricing their cost base, etc., into their advertising?
And if we change gear for a moment, you get great visibility over every sector of the financial services market, and there's some pretty big themes occurring at the moment. I know that you've recently launched a sustainability edition. Can you talk about where that's come from and if you're seeing a big increase across all parts of the market?
Yes, definitely. With FS Sustainability, that conversation started between Alex Dunnan, our head of research, and Rachel Alembakis, who's the Melbourne-based founder of the Sustainability Report. And that really came out of Rainmaker's kind of identifying that there's a lot more noise around sustainable investing. You can actually measure sustainability, so the metrics are a lot more rigorous. And so we thought, well, who can we align with who's already in that space? And Rachel stood out because she's true to label. She rides a bike every day, organic and health food, very passionate about sustainability. God forbid you start a conversation on climate change with her. You'll never leave her house. And that happened pretty quickly. So unlike money, which was like a couple of years in gestation, that deal probably happened within 6 months or so. And we don't want to change the content. We already have the expert, but we just wanted to give it, if you like, a stronger infrastructure around it. Now, the Sustainability Report originated as a Insto publication for super funds and wholesale investors. So to answer your question around, I guess for financial advisors, we're just kind of dipping our toes now to providing more content around financial advice and sustainability. I mean, Ken, what do you think? Is that something that you're seeing amongst your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think particularly post bushfires, there was a huge renewed interest in climate change, and advisors for the first time were actually getting significant demand from their end clients and therefore having to skill up and look at what options existed in the market. So no, it's compared to even 12 months ago, a lot more interest in the sector. And I think to your point, not necessarily a lot of information that people can look at.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that Rachel and I constantly discuss is that we better make sure we don't get into this whole greenwashing kind of community where, yes, it's on the label, it's sustainability, but really once you look under the bonnet, it's not. And that's really the mission of FS Sustainability, to provide financial advisors and super funds with genuine content around true to label, impact investing funds or sustainable funds, ethical funds. And then there are new trends as well. Like I think there's the blue ocean investing and a host of other things outside climate change.
Before we bring you the second part of this chat, a little bit about who we are. Launching 20 years ago, NetWealth is an ASX-listed company that is ranked number one for overall platform functionality and user satisfaction by Investment Trends for the past 3 years. As the financial advice landscape changes, it's important now more than ever to embrace new technology and enhance the way you do business. With this change comes your chance to innovate, explore new perspectives, and realise new efficiencies. NetWealth is here to support you on this journey by providing you market-leading technology, excellent customer support, and expertise to help you innovate in your business.
And as far as the media goes, financial planners, and this is a general comment, haven't been particularly good at really, I guess, vocalising the benefit of advice to the end consumer. What could advisors do to better leverage media, and how can they get their voice out there?
Yes. I know. I wonder why that is. I don't know why. Like, there's such an opportunity to really talk to even money readers, for example. What I've found just in the last 12 months of working with the money team is that there's absolute demand out there for good content around finance and almost like incremental steps towards building your wealth. Like, how do you invest with less than $10,000? How do you buy your second or your third investment property? One thing I would recommend is probably first do your research, so know what's out there. For example, they might want to look at the money website and see what are the kind of stories we're writing. They might be able to contribute on a story about estate planning or ETFs, for example, or sustainable investing. That's one. There are Facebook groups, I guess. She's on the Money is a great Facebook group for women and financial, just money management in general, not really financial planning. There's also, I just feel like a big segment of the public is missing out on professional advice, and either it's because they can't afford financial advice. So I still wonder why financial advice is not a tax deductible amount. And there needs to be more education. So what can they do? Understand what are the different types of consumer finance websites out there, and consider contributing a piece or so, or just offering an interview. And we're always open to anyone who wants to a financial planner who is an expert on those topics that I've just mentioned, whether it's on shares, ETFs, or property.
So as opposed to trying to go out and find yourself a column, it's more about just trying to collaborate on individual articles or areas that you feel you have an expertise.
Yes, absolutely. Because that's what we do every day already. So we would write a story or two on money in the morning, and then we send out the newsletter on the Wednesday. I understand, however, it's funny. One of the most embarrassing things that happened to me was at a career show and tell. So we had like a doctor, a neurosurgeon, an accountant, myself, and the host said, "Who here wants to be a writer?" And nobody said they wanted to be a writer. And I'm like, oh, well, how am I going to inspire you guys? But then, a decade later, everyone's a blogger, a podcaster, a publisher. So you can do that, definitely. But there is merit in the financial planning community reaching out to publications such as Money and other consumer websites.
And to avoid you getting 20,000 emails after this podcast, a financial advisor is best to try and find a couple of journalists that they read often or follow and arrange a cup of coffee, or how do they go about engaging with the media? Because it's not a skill that many would have.
That is so true. And I'll tell you, in the last 20 years that I've worked in finance journalism, I haven't had a female financial advisor call me to say, hey, can I contribute to your magazine or to your newspaper? Look, I'm very open. You can just email money@moneymag.com.au or info@financialstandard.com.au. Obviously, coffee is out, but a phone call and a Zoom meeting, and they're a friendly bunch. We're all very accessible here. We'll just get to know what their business is, what their line of expertise are, and then go from there.
I think that's absolutely great advice, and I hope some of our listeners take it up. Michelle, we're going to run out of time shortly, but I'm keen to understand what's next for you and the team.
Yeah, so I guess with all the uncertainty in the markets, and we don't really know when we're going to get the vaccines. At the moment, it's really just making sure that we're looking after our readers in terms of our content. So it's not like we're expecting 200% growth or anything like that. Secondly, just making sure that the staff are okay. I mean, it is an anxious time for everyone. And thirdly, there was an offer for another title this year, and we just said, nah, we can't do it. We've got our hands full. So what's next is just really continued growth for Financial Standard. You'll see more of Money Magazine. We are looking at podcasts and videos in that space. So yes, if you have any financial planners who want to contact us and collaborate, let us know. We have FS sustainability and industry moves to work on for 2021. So watch this space.
Sounds like you've got plenty on.
Yes, we've got a lot. And I mean, I do want to mention the FS Power 50, which is our 50 most influential advisors guide that will go out next year. I realized that we can't talk to all 22,000 financial planners out there in the market. So we do try to support the financial planning community by working with all our FS Power 50 advisors list. And we talk to them, interview them, profile them for the entire year that they're on that list, to just connect them with both the Financial Standard readers and the money readers.
Michelle, how long's the list been running for?
So it's been this is the 7th year now. This is the 7th year.
And has the list changed a lot in those 7 years? You've always got your usual culprits, but you've seen a lot of new people coming onto the list and doing things in new and interesting ways?
There wasn't a lot of change the first 3 years because our focus was definitely on social media. That was like a new thing back then. But I just had a look at the list this morning, and you'll definitely see a change. And it is peer voted, so they have to make sure that they do share it with the community that they are going to be part of the list. But we're seeing a kind of a diversification on specialties. So whether it's someone who's great on social, someone who's into ethical investing, for example, or retirement. Technology that used to be like, only a fraction of the financial planning community know about, whether it's Asana or Monday or, MS Meetings or Instagram, but now it's a given. And I think you've highlighted that in your Advice Tech report, that just being at the forefront of technology is no longer a nice to have, it's a prerequisite. So we're seeing that with the FS Power 50, where they are all using all these new tools to be successful.
So the FS Power 50 list has really become, in some ways, an advocacy list for the industry?
Absolutely. So this is, again, really just shining the torch on best practice advice, and then allowing them a voice to talk about their successes. Because as you know, with Financial Standard, with the daily news, we will be covering what's happening with the Royal Commission or legislation. And amidst all that, all the positive things that are happening in the industry kind of get buried. And we feel that FS Power 50 is about championing good advice and showing the world, if you like, that yes, the US have a different kind of financial planning culture, same with Europe, but look at Australia. This is the next generation of financial planners who are going to shape the industry.
Fantastic. And our entry is currently open for the FS 50, or is it getting close to being finalised for the year?
It's definitely close to being finalized. The voting has closed, so that's it for the year. But if anyone's interested, they can always have a look at all our previous guides and start prepping for next year.
Also great advice. Michelle, that's been a fantastic chat. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Given everything you've got on. Keep educating the market and keep up all the great work.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt. Good to talk to you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Between Meetings. For more episodes and to subscribe to our series, visit the NetWealth website, iTunes, Spotify, or your favourite listening service. And if you want to contact me or engage or discuss any of the topics raised, please find me on LinkedIn or Twitter or send me a private message. We hope you can tune into the next episode.